On our wedding anniversary, my husband and his charming intern ended up in the same bed. I was with you when you started from nothing, eating instant ramen in a rental apartment. Now you're bringing your mistress into our master bedroom? Ethan raised an eyebrow. I've already given you the title of Mrs. Shin. What more could you possibly want? As for who I sleep with, that's none of your business. Tears streamed into my mouth, so bitter they made me laugh out loud. How could you do this? What about my dignity? Dignity? He scoffed, pulling an exclusive credit card from his suit's inner pocket and tossing it in front of me. If you want dignity, go swipe this at the mall. If you want a man? You can find one too, it's perfectly fair. Turns out, the man before me was no longer the one I loved. Carol, I've booked a plane ticket back to Riverton. As I dialed, a gentle rain was falling outside the window. 9 years ago, I gave up my identity as the daughter of the William family in Riverton, lived with Ethan in a cramped 10-square-meter rental apartment, eating instant ramen, and stood by him as he rose from a struggling entrepreneur to the CEO of a publicly traded company. Now that he's successful, a young and beautiful intern stands by his side, while I am like an out-of-season fan, carelessly tossed aside. Back to Riverton? Carol's voice paused. What about Ethan? Are you too? I'll send him the divorce papers. I cut her off, my nails digging deep into my palm. He has someone by his side now, he no longer needs me as his partner. After hanging up, I heard the sound of keys turning in the lock at the entryway. Ethan walked in, soaking wet, followed by the intern named Ashley. She was wearing my cashmere shawl and my limited edition high heels. Grace, Ashley got wet in the rain, so she borrowed your clothes. Ethan's tone was flat, as if he were saying, the weather's nice today. Ashley hid timidly behind him, yet her eyes held undisguised provocation. And I looked at the crumpled high heels. That was the birthday gift Ethan bought for me after his first year of earning money, having searched half the city for them. He had said then, Grace, in the future, I'll make sure you wear the most beautiful shoes and walk the smoothest path. Mr. Ethan, I forced a stiff smile, my shoe size is 37, but Ms. Ashley wears a size 39. It'd be a shame if they got ruined from being squeezed. Ashley's face instantly flushed. Ethan frowned. Grace, what do you mean by that? I turned and walked towards the master bedroom. There are a few old clothes left in the walk-in closet. Perhaps with some alterations, they could be used as rags for Ms. Ashley. After all, I turned back, my gaze sweeping over the shawl she was wearing. Some people just like picking up others' leftovers. Ethan's expression darkened, but Ashley suddenly cried out, stumbling as if twisting her ankle and falling into his arms. Mr. Ethan, I didn't mean to. If Grace is upset, I'll just give her the shawl back. No need to return it. Ethan wrapped his arm around her waist, looking at me as if I were an unreasonable lunatic. It's just a piece of clothing, Grace. Can't you be more generous? Generous? I watched their embracing figures and suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of absurdity. For 9 years, I managed our home, navigated his social connections, and shaped myself into the supportive partner he needed, yet I was forced to learn generosity even over a single shawl. In the master bedroom drawer, there was a velvet box. Inside was a men's ring, made of platinum, with our initials engraved on it. I had saved 3 months' salary to buy it, a gift for him on our 3rd wedding anniversary. He only wore it once, then said it was too childish. Yet at this moment, I saw it in Ashley's social media post. She had taken a selfie, and beside the bracelet on her wrist, there conspicuously lay that very ring. The caption read, he set out with the old, in wit. H the new, but I just love this old thing. It has so much commemorative meaning. Grace, your plane ticket is for next Wednesday. Your dad sent some Riverton pastries for you. Carol's text message popped up as I was packing. In the closet, Ethan's suits occupied most of the space. I threw them onto the floor one by one, then saw a dark gray trench coat. That was the one he had secretly draped over me last winter when I was working late in his office, revising a proposal. At the time, he said, Director, don't overwork yourself. You have me. Now that I think about it, those words, you have me, were just a catchphrase he used to sweet-talk every woman. As I was tidying up the study, the door suddenly swung open. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, swirling a glass of red wine in his hand. I heard you're going back to Riverton? I didn't turn around or reply, continuing to organize the documents. Ethan suddenly grew anxious. He walked over, reaching out to touch me. Grace, I know you're angry, but Ashley. I spun around abruptly, looking him straight in the eyes. Ethan, do you remember our first date in Riverton's old district? You said you loved the old-fashioned candy there the most, and that you'd open an old-fashioned candy shop for me someday. He froze, his eyes somewhat bewildered. Do you remember, when we got married, you said we'd go to the beach every wedding anniversary? But the second year, you were out drinking with clients. The third year, you were on a business trip abroad. The fourth year. My voice grew softer. Of course you don't remember. Because those promises were only ever meant for me. He frowned, appearing as though he wanted to explain something. Just then, his phone rang. It was a WhatsApp voice message from Ashley, sickly sweet. Ethan, when are you coming back? I'm scared all alone. Ethan instinctively tried to hang up, but I clicked it open a step ahead of him. The voice message echoed in the quiet study, like a fine needle pie. Sing my eardrums. She's scared? I laughed, though tears streamed down my face. What about me then? 7 years ago, when your startup failed, I ate instant noodles with you for 3 months. You said you were afraid I'd suffer with you, but was I ever scared? 3 years ago, when your company's funding dried up, I went back to my family and begged my dad to mortgage our property. You said you were afraid I'd be wronged, but was I ever scared? Now, you tell me to be generous, to be understanding. Ethan, why don't you ask her in turn to understand me? He opened his mouth, but in the end, only managed to utter, Grace, you've changed. I wiped away my tears, picked up the divorce papers from the table, and pushed them in front of him. Have I changed, or have you just never truly seen me? Sign it, Mr. Ethan. From now on, who you open your old-fashioned candy shop for, or who lives in your oceanfront house with you, will have nothing to do with me. He stared at my signature on the agreement, his gaze complex. Suddenly, he picked up the pen, but instead of signing, he pushed the agreement aside. Grace, I won't let you leave. Won't let me? I was stunned. Yes, I won't. He stepped forward and abruptly pulled me into a hug, so strong it felt like he wanted to knead me into his very bones. I know I was wrong, Grace, don't leave me. His voice held a panic I'd never heard before, his warm breath fanning my neck. But before I could react, there was a crash at the door. Ashley stood there, the fruit bowl in her hand shattered on the floor, grapes scattering everywhere. She looked at us embracing, her face utterly pale. Then she quickly ran out the door. Ethan abruptly pushed me away and turned to chase after Ashley. I heard Ethan's anxious shouts, Ashley, let me explain. It's not what you think. I silently scoffed at myself. I, the actual wife, looked exactly like the mistress breaking up someone else's true love. Since I decided to divorce, then it's time to truly separate. As I was about to go to the company to pack my things, I found that my employee badge wouldn't open the main door. I looked up at the front desk attendant, but she nervously lowered her head. I had hired this young woman myself. Normally, she would always greet me with a cheerful director. My heart turned cold. Ethan, you really are ruthless. I asked the security guard to open the door for me, but he hesitated. Director, Vice Ashley, she said you've been dismissed, and gave orders not to let you in. I looked confused. This company was built from the ground up by Ethan and me. Just one day, and a Vice Ashley appeared out of nowhere? Ashley? Peng also has the last name Peng. What's going on? Unauthorized personnel are not allowed in the company. Security, how are you guarding the entrance? You wouldn't even stop a dog from coming in. A harsh, biting voice came from behind me. The security guard meekly called out, Vice Ashley. I turned and indeed saw Ashley standing triumphantly behind me. Around her neck was the diamond necklace Ethan had given me for my birthday. Well, isn't it, Director? She said with a sneer. Sorry about that, but I'm in charge of the company now. Mr. Ethan said he's had all your things packed up, there at the front desk. The front desk attendant nervously pushed out a cardboard box. Inside, my picture frames, water cup, and a few documents were haphazardly stuffed. My design blueprints were crumpled, and coffee stains marred the photo of Ethan and me. I sneered. How is it that I didn't know the company suddenly had another vice? Ashley smiled triumphantly. She leaned in close, lowering her voice. You might have tied Ethan down with marriage, but you'll never tie down his heart. I looked at the triumphant woman before me and quirked my lips. So, you deliberately sent me those photos? I thought Ashley would argue, but to my surprise, she admitted it directly, yes, to stop you from having any unrealistic fanta. Cease about Ethan. What's wrong, Grace? Seeing interact with me, are you so jealous you're going crazy? He's told me more than once that your messages annoy him, and he never replies. The more she spoke, the higher her voice rose, and the stronger the mockery in her eyes became. I smiled bitterly inwardly. Yes, Ashley wasn't wrong. My chat history with Ethan was always one-sided communication from me. Ethan, I made your favorite sweet and sour pork ribs today. Want to have dinner together when you get back? Ethan, the weather forecast says there's a heavy storm today. Should I pick you up from work? Ethan, are you coming home for dinner today? I had sent thousands upon thousands of messages, but his replies were few and far between. At the time, I comforted myself, thinking he was just too busy. But now, seeing how frequently he interacted with Ashley, I finally understood, he wasn't busy, he just didn't want to reply to me. Ms. Ashley, you don't need to say any of this in front of me. If you've got what it takes, make Ethan divorce me. If you can't, you'll spend your entire life like a thief who stole this ring, a thief of someone else's marriage. I pointed to the wedding ring on my ring finger. The other ring, which should have been on Ethan's hand, was now hanging from Ashley's necklace. Her face instantly darkened. I ignored her and turned to leave, but just as I took a step, I heard her shriek, "Security! This is the thief who stole Mr. Ethan's ring. Beat her." How preposterous. This ring is Ethan's and my wedding ring. Ashley stole it and wore it around her neck, and now she's playing the victim? I couldn't be bothered to argue. I pulled out my phone, ready to call the police. Ashley, since you want to make a scene, let the police be the judge. But before I could dial, she lunged forward, snatched my phone, and slammed it to the ground. Call the police? You think you're worthy? Then, she raised her hand and slapped me across the face. Phone. Fragments scattered at my feet. My cheek stung, and the taste of blood filled my mouth. Ethan bought this ring for me at an international auction house for a hefty sum. If you didn't steal it, how would yours be a match for mine? Her shamelessness made me laugh, despite myself. How could it be with me? Ashley, Ethan, and I are legally married. And you're just a mistress. But to my surprise, after I said that, Ashley didn't panic. Instead, she laughed even more mockingly. Married? Grace, the one who isn't loved is the third party. Unbeknownst to me, a group of employees had gathered around, whispering, "Who is this woman? I've never seen her at the company, and she dares to call herself Mr. Ethan's wife?" Exactly. Mr. Ethan and Vice Ashley are clearly a couple. Is she out of her mind? Listening to the whispers, Ashley's triumphant smile widened. Grace, just give up. As far as Ethan is concerned, you don't even compare to my little finger. After she finished speaking, she gestured for the security guards to come forward and hold me down firmly. Fists and dress shoes landed heavily on my body. I curled up on the ground, in so much pain I nearly lost consciousness. What are you doing? A familiar voice came from a distance. I struggled to look up and saw Ethan striding over, followed by several board members. Seeing me lying on the ground, covered in blood, he froze. A tearing pain ripped through my lower abdomen, and warm liquid streamed down my thighs, staining my light-colored skirt with a shocking red. I curled up on the ground, cold sweat soaking my back, my vision blurring. I could only hear Ashley's panicked scream, "It wasn't me." She fell on her own. Ethan's footsteps approached, with an urgency I had never heard before. When he knelt down and his fingertips touched my skin, I flinched. That hand, which had so many times gently stroked my long hair, now felt chilling to the bone. "Grace!" His voice was tight as he scooped me up into his arms. In his arms, I felt as light as a feather. He looked down at me, his eyes swirling with emotions I couldn't decipher. "Hold on, I'm taking you to the hospital." The ambulance siren pierced through the clouds. Leaning against Ethan in his arms, the pain in my lower abdomen grew more intense with each wave. In a daze, I remembered the 2 red lines on the pregnancy test from 3 days ago. Back then, I had clutched the test stick, standing in the bathroom for a long time, imagining the surprised look Ethan might show when he heard the news. It turned out, even giving this child a chance to meet the world was a luxury I couldn't afford. The operating room lights were blindingly bright. The moment the anesthetic was injected into my veins, the last thing I saw was Ethan's silhouette standing at the end of the hallway, tall and imposing, yet radiating a sense of detachment. When I woke up again, the hospital room was filled with the smell of disinfectant. Carol sat by my bed, her eyes red. Seeing me open my eyes, she choked up and squeezed my hand. "Grace, you've suffered so much." I opened my mouth, my throat aching with dryness, wanting to ask about the baby, but no sound would come out. Just then, the hospital room door opened, and Ethan walked in. He had changed into a clean suit, his hair neatly combed, as if the man who had held me in a panic just moments ago was merely my imagination. He didn't look at me, but walked straight to the bedside table and dropped a document onto it with a soft thud. "The divorce papers, I've signed them." His tone was flat, as if discussing an insignificant contract. "I've had the lawyer adjust the asset division. The villa in South will be yours, and I'll give you another $50 million. That should be enough for you to live comfortably back in Riverton." I stared at the document, my fingertips trembling as they touched my still flat lower abdomen. There had once been a tiny life there, the only bond between him and me, but now it was gone. The baby. I finally squeezed out 2 words, my voice so hoarse it didn't sound like my own. Only then did Ethan raise his eyes to look at me. In his gaze, there was no pity, no guilt, only a tranquility that bordered on relief. The doctor said your body is too weak. In the future, be more careful. Be more careful? I looked at him and suddenly laughed, but tears streamed down my face. Ethan, that was your child. Don't you care at all? He frowned, as if annoyed by my emotions. Grace, what's done is done. There's no point in talking about it. He took out another gilded card and placed it on top of the divorce papers. Ashley and I are getting engaged next Saturday. This is the invitation. The red invitation stung my eyes. His and Ashley's names were printed on it, the gilded lettering seeming to mock my naivety. You want me to attend your engagement party? I looked at him in disbelief. After I lost our child? I'm not asking you to come, I'm informing you. He took a step back, widening the distance between us, his voice as cold as ice. Grace, sign it. Once you sign, we're even. From now on, keep your distance, and don't appear in front of Ashley and me again. He paused, then added, it'll be better for both of us. Better for both of us? I looked at the man before me, so familiar yet so strange, feeling as though a piece of my heart had been brutally gouged out. 9 years of companionship, from eating instant ramen in a rental apartment to becoming the CEO of a publicly traded company. I walked the muddiest paths with him. Yet, as he stepped onto the smooth road, he personally pushed me into the abyss. It turned out, it wasn't that he didn't know I was wronged, or that he was unaware of Ashley's actions. He simply didn't care. Perhaps, for him, my miscarriage was merely one less obstacle to the divorce. I picked up the divorce papers, my fingertips turning white from the force. The terms were clear and straightforward. The money he offered was enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life, but how could I measure the years I'd exchanged for my youth and true heart? Ethan, I looked up at him, tears blurring my vision. You'll regret this. He quirked his lips, seemingly finding it amusing. I never regret decisions I've made. With that, he turned and walked away, without a trace of hesitation. The moment the hospital room door closed, I could no longer hold myself up. I collapsed against the headboard, buried my face in my hands, and sobbed uncontrollably. Carol held me, sighing repeatedly. It's good you're back, Grace. Let's go home. The sunlight from outside streamed through the window, landing on the red invitation, stinging my eyes. I knew that from this moment on, the story of Grace and Ethan was completely over. The day I was discharged from the hospital, Riverton had a rare snowfall. Carol helped me bundle up in my puffer jacket, her voice full of tenderness. You'll be fine once you're back home. I'll make you some hearty broth to recover. I nodded, saying nothing. The moment the operating room light went out, along with that tiny life, my 9-year obsession with Ethan also faded away. The nights of eating instant ramen, the moments we held each other for warmth, the broken promises, all became dust from a past life. The villa in Riverton was something Carol had arranged long ago. The moment I pushed the door open, the familiar scent of sandalwood incense wafted over me. Suddenly, I felt as though these 9 years had been a long, drawn-out dream, and now I was finally awake. Ethan's calls and messages kept coming, sometimes a late night "Are you asleep?", sometimes a transfer record followed by "Take care of yourself." I ignored them all, simply letting my lawyer proceed with the divorce process according to the agreement. Ashley, on the other hand, would send surprises every now and then. The engagement party invitation design she posted on social media was in my least favorite. Magenta. She showed off the limited edition bag Ethan had given her, with the caption, "Some people just don't know how to cherish things." One time, she even called Carol's phone directly, asking in a sweet, affected voice, "Auntie, what do you think? Shouldn't I have strawberry or chocolate for our engagement cake?" Carol was trembling with anger, but I simply took the phone calmly. "Ms. Ashley, instead of worrying about cake flavors, you should focus on what dress you'll wear to the engagement party that can hide that stolen ring around your neck." The breathing on the other end of the line instantly became rapid, and then I decisively hung up. I had no desire to get entangled with her. After my health improved, I began to take over the family business. The family had been running a jewelry business in Riverton for decades. William was getting old and was worried about finding a suitable successor. I immersed myself in the store, studying design blueprints, and rushing to the factory to oversee the production process. I was constantly busy, barely able to touch the ground, but I enjoyed the peace it brought. The turning point came on a rainy night. That day, I went to the suburban factory to inspect a batch of gemstones. On my way back, my car got stuck in the mud. Just as I was about to call a tow truck, I suddenly saw flickering lights in an abandoned warehouse not far away, accompanied by muffled sounds of an argument. Driven by an inexplicable impulse, I walked over with my umbrella. The warehouse door wasn't fully closed. Through the gap, I saw a sight I'd never forget. Ashley standing in the shadows, facing a young man with dyed yellow hair who was gripping her arm and yelling, "Where's the money? Didn't you say Ethan would do anything for you? You can't even get this much money? Kyle, stop it." Ashley's voice was panicked. "I'm planning the engagement party right now. Ethan's keeping a close eye on everything. Once this period is over, once this OD is over, I can't wait any longer." The man abruptly pushed her, pulled a small plastic bag from his pocket, and shook out white powder. "If you don't give me the money, I'll go tell Ethan that you not only had a child a long time ago, but you're also helping me hide drugs." Ashley's face was ashen. She pulled a wad of cash from her bag and threw it at him. "This is all there is. Now get out, and don't ever show your face again." The man took the money, then lewdly touched her face. "Don't worry, once you become Mrs. Shin, don't forget you have a son in the rural town waiting to acknowledge his father." The rain was too heavy. I didn't hear the rest of what he said. My hand on the umbrella handle was trembling, not from fear, but from a sense of absurd satisfaction. I quietly took out my phone, set it to silent, and snapped over a dozen photos of the two people in the warehouse. The flash wasn't on, but with the distant streetlights, it was enough to clearly see their faces and the plastic bag in the man's hand. When I got back to the car, I was soaked through, but I laughed out loud. So this was the true love Ethan was willing to abandon his wife and lose his child to protect. I saved the photos to an encrypted album and didn't tell anyone. Carol asked why I was so wet. I just said I had an accident on the road. Ethan's divorce papers arrived. I didn't even look at them, signing directly. Ashley, however, quieted down for several days, perhaps out of guilt. Until 3 days before the engagement party, she sent another photo. She was wearing a white gown, standing in an event hall filled with roses, with the caption, "Soon to be Mrs. Shin." So happy, I looked at the photo, tapped lightly on the screen with my fingertips, and replied with 2 words, "Congrats." She probably thought I had completely given up, and quickly replied, "You definitely have to come then. I've saved the best seat for you." I smiled and didn't reply further. The best seat? Indeed, the surprise I had prepared for her and Ethan would require a front row seat to be seen clearly. Outside the window, the winter blossoms were in full bloom, their fragrance crisp and clear. I picked up my phone and called William's assistant. "Uncle, please prepare a very elegant gown for me. Next, I'll be attending an engagement party." After hanging up, I opened the encrypted photo album, looking at Ashley's panicked face and the white powder in the man's hand, my gaze calm and unwavering. Ethan and Ashley's engagement party was held at the city's most luxurious hotel, attended by business magnates and scions of prominent families. When I arrived, Ethan was standing at the entrance of the ballroom, holding Ashley's hand and greeting guests. Ashley was wearing a haute couture wedding gown. When she saw me, a flicker of surprise quickly crossed her eyes, immediately turning into undisguised mockery. Well, Grace, you actually dared to show up." She deliberately raised her voice, drawing several curious glances. "Are you here to beg? Ethan said that if you get on your knees and beg me, I might be able to get him to give you a little more severance." Ethan frowned, his tone far from gentle. "Grace, I didn't expect you to actually come. You're not welcome here, leave." I ignored them and walked straight inside. The dark green velvet gown I wore had been specially prepared by William. It accentuated my fair complexion, blending seamlessly with the opulent atmosphere around me, showing no hint of distress. As soon as I reached the center of the ballroom, Ashley caught up to me, reaching out to grab my gown. "How can someone like you deserve to wear such nice clothes? Did you steal them?" Her nails were sharp, almost scratching my arm. I sidestepped, avoiding her, and looked at her coldly. "Ms. Ashley, aren't you afraid of embarrassing Mr. Ethan by being rude in front of so many guests?" People around us began to whisper. An elder who had ties with the William family recognized me and quietly reminded Ashley, "This is the eldest daughter of the William family from Riverton. You should speak more respectfully." "The family's eldest daughter?" Ashley laughed exaggeratedly, as if she had heard the biggest joke. "If she's the William family's eldest daughter, then I'm the CEO of Shin. She's just a pauper Ethan brought out of a rental apartment. Does she really think she's a pampered young lady?" Ethan stood by, silently endorsing her words, his gaze at me filled with warning. Grace, don't make a scene here, or don't blame me for being unmerciful. I looked at him, my heart turning to ice. 9 years, and he had never truly understood me. Back then, to cater to his ridiculous pride, I hid my William family background, pretended to be just an ordinary girl, lived with him in a rental apartment, and ate the cheapest food. Looking back now, that careful preservation was truly absurd and pathetic. Seeing my silence, Ashley grew even more triumphant, reaching out to push me. Get out. This isn't where you belong. Before her hand could even touch me, it was firmly grasped by a hand with distinct knuckles. Who dares to touch my daughter? A calm, powerful voice rang out behind me, carrying an undeniable authority. I turned and saw William, my father, walking in, clad in a sharp black suit, surrounded by several bodyguards. His hair was streaked with gray, yet his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. He was none other than William, the chairman of the William, whom no one in Riverton dared to underestimate. The ballroom instantly quieted down, and many faces showed surprise. Ethan and Ashley were stunned. Especially, he clearly recognized William, his expression shifting slightly. He quickly pulled Ashley forward, his posture respectful to the point of fawning. Mr. William, what brings you here? Please, come in. We were just dealing with a minor issue, we won't disturb your enjoyment. Ashley also reacted, forcing a sickly sweet smile. Mr. Will. Liam, it's truly an honor to have you. This woman here is just being disruptive and making a scene. I'll have the security guard escort her out right away. As she spoke, she tried to push me again, but a cold glance from William made her retract her hand in fear. William didn't even spare them a glance, walking directly towards me. He looked at me, the sternness in his eyes softening into a hint of imperceptible tenderness. Then he extended his hand and gently took my arm, his movement natural and intimate, as if performing a gesture practiced 1,000 times. Grace, his voice softened slightly, yet it was loud enough for everyone around to hear. Remember this, some people, you need to distinguish between humans and dogs. Don't let every Tom, Dick, or Harry bother you, it cheapens you. As his words fell, Ethan's face instantly turned ashen. Ashley hadn't quite registered it, and asked blankly, Mr. William, you know her? Only then did William raise his eyes, glancing indifferently at her, his gaze like he was looking at an insignificant piece of trash. My family's beloved daughter, do you think I'd recognize her? The family's jewel? Ashley shrieked, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Impossible. She's just a pauper who ate instant ramen with Ethan. Silence. William sharply cut her off, his aura instantly silencing everyone present. My daughter, William's daughter, even if she wore coarse clothes, it's not for the likes of you to comment on. Ethan's lips trembled, as if he wanted to say something, but not a single word escaped him. He looked at me, his eyes filled with shock, disbelief, and a hint of panic he hadn't even noticed himself. He probably never imagined that the woman who ate instant noodles with him, who mortgaged her family's property for him, was actually the eldest daughter of the William family from Riverton, the William family he had desperately tried to curry favor with, but found it difficult even to get an audience. Why? Tioch. The murmurs around them rose and fell, and the glances directed at Ethan and Ashley became playful, filled with schadenfreude. So that's Mr. William's daughter. Ethan is such a scumbag, treating Ms. Grace like that. Ashley just said she'd kick her out, and now her face must be swollen from being slapped. Ashley's face alternated between green and white. She gripped Ethan's arm tightly, as if seeking support. William ignored them further, looking down at me and saying gently, Grace, let's go sit over there. I nodded, taking William's arm, and under the gaze of the crowd, I walked step by step through the throng towards the front row of the ballroom, the very spot Ashley had previously said was the best seat she'd saved for me. As I passed Ethan, I turned my head to glance at him, my eyes calm and devoid of emotion. He opened his mouth, seeming to want to say something, perhaps an apology, perhaps an explanation, but I no longer wanted to listen. William was right. Some people, you should have distinguished between humans and dogs long ago, and the surprise I had prepared for them was about to make its debut. I looked at the giant LED screen in the center of the ballroom, a cold curve forming on my lips. Ethan, Ashley, enjoy your last moments in the spotlight. The climax of the engagement party arrived when Ethan began his speech. He stood under the spotlight, holding the microphone, speaking eloquently to the crowded room of guests, talking about giving Ashley a wedding of the century, declaring her his destined love. Ashley, dressed in a white gown, stood by his side, smiling like a cat who'd caught the canary, occasionally glancing my way with a mix of boastfulness and triumph. William gave me a look, and I gave a slight nod. Just as Ethan said, I will cherish Ashley for the rest of my life. The lights in the entire hall suddenly dimmed. The huge LED screen, which had been displaying sweet photos of the couple, suddenly switched its display. The scene from the abandoned warehouse abruptly appeared. On screen, Ashley was handing a wad of cash to the young man with dyed yellow hair. The man lewdly touched her face, and his voice clearly echoed, "Don't forget you have a son in the rural town waiting to acknowledge his father." The entire room erupted in an uproar. The smile on Ashley's face instantly froze. Her complexion turned ashen, and she shrieked, rushing towards the backstage. "Turn it off! Turn it off! This isn't real." But it was too late. The next second, an even more shocking scene appeared on the screen. The man pulled out a plastic bag and poured white powder onto a piece of foil, lighting it. Although didn't directly participate, she watched nervously from the side and even handed the man a lighter when he urged her. The dialogue in the video was clearly audible. "If you don't give me the money, I'll go tell Ethan you're helping me hide drugs." Click, click, flashbulbs went off frantically. The reporters Ethan had invited swarmed towards the screen like sharks smelling blood, snapping photos of the footage like mad. "Isn't that Ashley? Oh my God, she's associating with drug users. And she has an illegitimate child? What kind of person did Ethan marry?" The whispers surged like a tide. The same prominent figures who had just been fawning over Ashley now frowned, their faces etched with disgust. Someone immediately put down their wine glass and quietly told the person next to them, "Bad luck, let's go." Ethan stood on stage, his body stiff as a stone. He stared intently at the screen, his pupils constricting. All color drained from his face, replaced moments later by a furious flush. He spun around, facing Ashley, his voice trembling with rage. "Ashley, what in the world is going on?" Trapped by the reporters, Ashley was a mix of shock and fear, babbling incoherently in her defense. "No, it's not true. It's Grace. She set me up. It's her." She pointed at me wildly. "You bitch. You did this on purpose." A spotlight, I realized, had somehow found me, making me appear calm and detached. "Set you up?" I chuckled, my voice low. "Ms. Ashley, should I tell everyone the address of the abandoned warehouse in the video? The surveillance footage from inside has already been collected by the police as evidence. Oh, and by the way, the drugs you hid in your suburban rental apartment, along with your son's birth certificate, I've also borrowed them and turned them over to the police." You. Ashley trembled with rage, then suddenly her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed. The scene erupted into utter chaos. Guests scrambled to leave, desperate to avoid any association with the scandal. Ethan's parents' faces were ashen, and they began to harshly scold him. Several board members who had partnerships with Ethan's company, their faces grim, approached Ethan, declared our partnership is terminated, and walked away abruptly. Ethan stood amidst the wreckage, staring at me with a terrifyingly complex expression, shock, anger, regret, and a flicker of despair. "Grace," he mumbled my name, his voice hoarse. I didn't spare him another glance, calmly walking out of the banquet hall arm in arm with William. The commotion and disgrace behind me no longer concerned me. The next day, hashtags like hashtag Ethan Ashley engagement party disaster, hashtag Ashley drug abuse, and hashtag Ethan scammed by mistress took over all the trending topics. Online, netizens dug deeper, quickly unearthing my past with Ethan, how I, as the Lin family heiress, gave up everything to suffer alongside him, only for him to cheat with an intern once he became successful, even forcing me to divorce him after my miscarriage. Public opinion completely exploded. Ethan became a social outcast, and Ethan's company's stock plummeted, on the verge of bankruptcy. As for Ashley, when she awoke in the hospital, a police arrest warrant awaited her. She was immediately taken into custody and incarcerated for suspected drug use and posse. Cyan. A week later, downstairs at Ethan's company. Ethan wore a wrinkled suit, his hair disheveled, eyes sunken. The vibrant energy he once had was long gone. He held a large bouquet of roses, kneeling at the company entrance, drawing countless passers-by who gathered to watch and take photos. As my car passed, he lunged forward like a madman, blocking its path. "Grace, please forgive me, okay? I know I made a mistake. I shouldn't have been so infatuated. Let's start over, okay?" Reporters, having caught wind of the scene, rushed over, their cameras aimed squarely at us. I pushed open the car door and walked up to him. He thought I was giving him a chance, and a flicker of hope ignited in his eyes. I looked down at him, as if he were a complete stranger. Ethan, my voice was flat, devoid of emotion, do you know? My love, Grace's love, only happens once in a lifetime. I gave it to the boy who ate instant ramen with me 9 years ago. Unfortunately, he died long ago. I paused, my gaze sweeping over his pale face, then stated, word for word, a scumbag like you will never be worthy of it in this lifetime. With that, I turned to get back into the car. The surrounding passers-by suddenly burst into applause, and someone shouted, Ms. Grace is right. That man doesn't deserve it. Others chimed in, comforting me, don't be sad, girl, you deserve better. Before I knew it, a few enthusiastic passers-by lifted me up, passing me forward with smiles. I was taken by surprise, yet amidst their warm gazes, I couldn't help but smile. Sunlight warmed my face. I glanced back at Ethan, still kneeling on the ground. His figure grew smaller and smaller in the crowd, eventually blurring into a black dot. All those agonizing nights, the heart-wrenching pain, the years I'd wasted on him, at this moment, they finally vanished completely. The car restarted, driving towards a bright, sunlit horizon. I knew my new life had just begun. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.